First take, stop me. Four takes, that's true.
Hello, welcome into First Take on a Thursday. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Max Kellerman, Molly Karam, Stephen A. Smith in the house.
What's up, big boy?
Guys.
Good to see y'all. How you doing?
Good, I'm good.
Everything all right?
Yes.
I'm back from L.A.
Yeah,
like I told
how
you I
was
would
it?
be. Huh?
How was
it was
it?
lovely. It was lovely.
Our
I had a good
actor,
time.
General Hospital.
I had a good time.
I heard you knocked out everything on your first take, Stephen.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
you
I
do.
did that, got home, and actually got to opportunity to watch one of the great speeches from our very own president. He was spectacular.
Owning the room.
That was
No doubt.
quite a 1-2-3 punch. Michelle, Bill, and then the
It
president
was special.
on
It was
consecutive
special.
days.
Don't
No doubt.
stop, but you are here, so
No
let's
doubt.
get
I'm
into
in
it.
the
Coming
house,
up on the show, rapper, producer, entrepreneur, the one and only Birdman is here. He'll join us at the desk. He has a new show. We'll get into that. Also, what he thinks about Dwayne Wade leaving his Miami Heat. That is coming up a bit later, but we start in New York with the Jets. Ryan Fitzpatrick should be under center week 1. The Jets and Fitzpatrick have ended their contract dispute, agreeing to a 1-year, fully guaranteed $12 million deal, according to our Adam Schefter. Now, when Brandon Marshall heard he had his quarterback back, he tweeted this photo of him, Nick Mangold, Eric Decker, with the caption, "Well-deserved and great move by the Jets. Congrats, bro. Now we need to go win some dang games." Hashtag New York, hashtag Fitzmagic. Fitzpatrick had refused to sign the initial offer of 3 years, $24 million, including a total guarantee of $15 million. So the Jets will now have to create room under the salary cap for Fitz. So they only have $9.1 million in cap space, that according to NFLPA records. Stephen A., did Fitzpatrick get a raw deal?
Here's what I'm going to say. I don't think he got a raw deal. He could have got more, but I don't think he got a raw deal. In the end, what this comes down to is very simple. You could sit up there. I don't think it's something for him to celebrate. He's not going to have a miserable season or anything like that. But was he worth more than $12 million for this particular season? Yes. Now, I know that a lot of people out there are going to look at him. They're going to look at his career record, which is under 500. They're going to consider him a proverbial backup per se, perennial backup, and he's not somebody that you should look at and say, well, you know what, he should have gotten more than $12 million. He should be satisfied. But what I would say to people is this: the Jets were 4-12 before last season. Last season, they finished 10-6. It's a 6-game improvement. Up until that last regular season game against the Buffalo Bills, in which they lost, had an opportunity to get into the playoffs, Max, and they failed to do so. The bottom line is that Fitzpatrick played lights out football. He passed for nearly 4,000 yards. He completed nearly 60% of his passes. I mean, I'm looking at his numbers right here. 31 touchdowns, 15 interceptions is not great, but 31 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, a QBR of 63, completing 59.6% of his passes, passing for 3,905 yards. What's the problem? When you consider today's NFL economy, when you consider that Jay Cutler's got a $100 million contract and Tony Romo's got a $100 million contract, of course, there are other great ones that we won't even mention them because Fitzpatrick doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as those guys. But when you look at what he did for the Jets last year, understanding the importance of continuity, the fact that Brandon Marshall and Eric Deckers of the world, people like that, are still there, and you have an opportunity to build upon something that you did last year, particularly with the Brickshaw Ferguson retiring and what have you. You got Nick Mangold and those boys back. You pretty much have the nucleus of your squad in place. You know, you've got Muhammad Wilkinson that you ended up keeping on board, etc. The Jets' defense is anticipated to be better because Todd Bowles is your head coach, a former defensive coordinator extraordinaire before he arrived in with the New York Jets. You don't want to mess this up. So it was good that they kept him. It was more good for the Jets, however, than it is good for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because if you're Ryan Fitzpatrick, this was a prime opportunity to cash in, and unfortunately, they weren't able to do so. He wasn't able to do so as much as he would have liked. So the Jets came out far bigger winners than Fitzpatrick did in this equation, but I won't call him a loser because $12 million is $12 million for a guy that was considered a journeyman quarterback until we saw what we saw last year.
He didn't get a raw deal, Fitzpatrick. A raw deal? No. He's just not that good. I mean, let me start by saying, I preface every time we talk about an athlete on this level, you know, even a college athlete's a tremendous athlete, Division I. If you play in the NFL, in the NBA, in Major League Baseball, NHL, whatever, it goes without saying you are one of the best in the world in an extremely competitive endeavor. You're one of the best in the world, so of course you're great at whatever it is, at whatever sport you're playing. I get it. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about by the standards of the NFL. Fitzpatrick has never been, nor will he ever be, a good quarterback. At best, he's an average-ish quarterback. Now, if you're an average-ish quarterback Stephen A., as you mentioned, in this day and age, given the vertical passing game, the importance of offense, being able to throw the ball down the field, given the moment of leverage for the Jets, who have a very good squad, and also given the fact that Geno Smith is the backup and he has never shown college or pros that he's never given the indication that he could ever be consistent enough to be your starting quarterback and really make hay in the playoffs.
Right.
Given all of that, there was some leverage here for Fitzpatrick. And if he were 26 years old, okay, he wants 3 years, 4 years. He wants to get paid, maybe not like Andrew Luck, of course, but better than he got paid for the year and over more years. Fine. But he will turn 34 years old this season. He's never really had one decent season in the past before this one. Turning 34 years old, and you mentioned it. He had one game he absolutely had to win against the Bills. Win and you're in. And he lost. So he's a 34-year-old on his best day average NFL quarterback who choked under pressure. I mean, I think some of it with Fitzpatrick is the perception of him is a little bit out of whack because he's Harvard. So people think Harvard, he must be a very smart quarterback. And in fact, to me, he looks like a mistake-prone quarterback, just not compared to Geno Smith. Compared to Geno Smith, Jets fans are like, oh, okay, we got a guy who can make some decisions. We got a guy who can be somewhat consistent throughout the year. But given his age, 1 year, $12 million, that sounds right to me.
Well, it doesn't sound right to me because I'm thinking about production. I'm thinking about what the market demands. I'm thinking about your situation, all about history. If I have Geno Smith as my alternative, I'm going to prioritize re-signing Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's point number one. No disrespect, Geno Smith, but damn it, get it together because you haven't looked that great. And then to come in the last season, before the season even began, to really ruin your season and potentially your career because you get knocked in your jaw because you decide to get in the face and talk smack to a 250-pound linebacker you owe money to. That is the epitome of stupidity. So let's be clear. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because nobody usurps the stupidity of Alden Smith if he is guilty of being that Alden Smith that was in that video just the other day that we talked about. If that was him, that would usurp that level of stupidity. But outside of that, I'll give it to Geno. Then we go into the marketplace. Let me revisit that. And we will be talking about this throughout the day because we're going to get into Kirk Cousins a little bit later with the Redskins. Let's look at this, Max Kellerman. Kirk Cousins, 1 year, $19.95 million, $19.953. That's what he's scheduled to make this season. Ryan Tannehill. When's the last time the Miami Dolphins have been in the playoffs? I don't recall. I'll have to look it up because that's how long it's been since the Miami Dolphins have been in the playoffs. I don't even remember. But Ryan Tannehill is getting paid $19.2 million, okay? Let's look at Colin Kaepernick. He was on the mend. He was hurt. Wasn't himself. Did go to a Super Bowl. Can't knock that, okay? But clearly the last year or so in San Francisco.
I know you're not comparing Fitzpatrick to Kaepernick.
I am comparing Fitzpatrick to Kaepernick based off of last year because we are living in a world where it's all about what have you done for me lately. Not to bring up Janet Jackson, but it's appropriate.
But here on the planet Earth, if here on the planet Earth, Fitzpatrick's not Kaepernick.
Well, here on the planet Earth, Colin Kaepernick's got a lot to prove, and we don't even know if he'll have a starting job next year, whereas Ryan Fitzpatrick is fresh off a season where he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, and is playing for a coach in Todd Bowles who clearly knows what he's doing on one side of the football, and McCagnon and him together are collaborating to bring the right personnel to the New York Jets. So I can see comparing the situations because of the situation that Ryan Fitzpatrick presently finds himself in. If it were not for last year, you would absolutely be right. But taking into account last season, I'm not going to dismiss that. Jay Cutler, 18.1. You know, I'm almost tempted to walk off this damn set right now when I hear that number. Jay Cutler at $18.1 million. I mean, the only time, I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say it again from audience here. I've seen Jay Cutler smile once. And that was when he was signing his contract. It was almost like he was laughing at the Bears in the city of Chicago, okay? Which should have barricades up to ban his leaderless self from being the face of that franchise. Don't get me started with no Jay Cutler, okay? So we've got that going on. And then, oh, by the way, Brock Osweiler, 7 starts, 5-2. He's at $18 million. I understand the situation. I understand everything that you can say, because, you know, he coming from the Super Bowl champions, he fielded admirably when Peyton Manning went down. I get all that. All I'm trying to say is this. You, of all people, being the capitalist that you are, you almost put me to shame being the capitalist that you are. Considering that, when you look at the market and you look at the money that's out there, to give you those numbers and then to go to Ryan Fitzpatrick at $12 million, right now that ranks 23rd in the NFL in terms of salaries based on what I'm looking at right here. Well, he's at number 23. Yeah, I'm just looking at it. I'm like,
Okay, look.
All right.
Look, everyone you just mentioned. Let's table Jay Cutler for a second.
Thank you.
Let's table him for a second because he quit on his team in the NFC Championship game, but he's certainly more talented than Fitzpatrick. And he's had a better career than Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick really hadn't done anything in his career.
And what has
Jay
Cutler done?
2 decent seasons.
And what has Jay
At
Cutler
least
done?
Jay Cutler has had a couple of seasons where during the regular season, he's been pretty good. Fitzpatrick had a chance to go to the postseason, and as soon as the pressure was on, choked. But everyone else you mentioned, including Tannehill, including Kaepernick, who else did you just mention?
You don't count it against Jay Cutler that he was riding a bicycle on the NFC for the NFC Championship game on the sideline.
What did I start by saying? I said he quit in the championship.
But he didn't even have the decency to fake an injury or something. He was riding a bicycle. He was riding a bicycle. He became Lance Armstrong for crying out loud.
That's why I said let's table Jay Cutler.
All right.
Everyone
I'm just saying.
Outside of Jay Cutler,
yes. Everyone else you mentioned is a younger quarterback, is a quarterback where teams have reason to believe they have at least as many good years ahead of them as behind them. Now, let's look at the marketplace. You're talking about what the marketplace will bear. There's a reason that Fitzpatrick is getting a 1-year, $12 million contract. There were teams that could have used a quarterback. Where were the offers? The rest of the league saw, because in the NFL it's a hard cap league.
No leverage.
The most important thing you can do as a GM is properly price talent. That goes for draft picks. You have to be able to properly evaluate and price talent. And the league looked at Fitzpatrick and what he wanted. He wanted length of contract and a decent guarantee. And there were no takers in the NFL. The marketplace said nope. And you know how ruthless the NFL is. So the Jets are sitting there going, all right, here's 1 year.
But Max Kellerman, here's where your argument goes out the window, because you're talking years. I'm talking numbers, even if it's just for 1 year. And what I'm saying to you is that even though you have to take into account how much money the Jets have available, and we all understand it was a bit dicey for them right now, because it's dicey for them now that they agreed to give him the $12 million. I'm saying to you, for this 1 year, I'm not talking long term, for this 1 year, when you consider the season the Jets are coming off of, what you're considering Tyrod Taylor and his evolution in Buffalo and what they're going to bring, when you consider that Gase, who did a decent job, a very good job making Jay Cutler look decent, that's now in Miami, and what they're trying to do with Tannehill, you got to take that into consideration. When you know that Tom Brady is going to be fresh off a 4-game suspension, going to have attitude with everybody, and is going to run roughshod over the AFC East, if history is any kind of indication. If you've got all of that going on, you're the New York Jets. You can't disrupt this apple cart. See, this is the thing that annoys me about the Jets. And even though I love me some Todd Bowles and the crew, this is what gets on my nerve with them, meaning the brand that is the New York Jets. It has been 5 years since they've made the playoffs. 5. Rex Ryan didn't make it his last 4, and Todd Bowles didn't make it last year despite a 10-6 record. And you got to the final game of the regular season, and you came up short, largely due in part to Ryan Fitzpatrick and a couple of other dudes. Here's what gets on my nerves about this. I can't stand when they walk around like they've won something and they get to sit up there. Oh, you know, it's all right. It's okay. We gotta mind our manners with this. We've got to mind our finances with that. Blah, blah. You know what? You need to remind us that you are actually trying to attempt to make a playoff break. We need to remember this about the Jets, because they damn sure don't do a good job of reminding us that they're trying to be a playoff team.
Well, they're doing it now. I love when you make my point for me. Thank you for giving me all this evidence.
I disagree. Next week, by
you say, 30 plus touchdowns, 15 interceptions. 31. 3 interceptions in the game they needed to win.
Sure.
In other words, it would have been a really nice season, except instead of 12, it's 15 interceptions, because when you needed him most, he choked.
Mm-hmm. One of them was a late,
Okay. Still, you're talking about how much leverage. Essentially, everything you said about Fitzpatrick vis-a-vis the Jets is how much leverage he had with the team, given the moment, given the squad they have, given the opportunity in the division right now, given who's his backup. He has all this leverage. So the fact that he wound up with only $12 million, because you're saying the real problem is the number he got for this year. Forget about age. We're not talking about huge guarantee. The number he got for this year. What does that tell me? What does that tell tell everyone
that there wasn't a market out there for him.
No, that he overplayed his hand. That's on Fitzpatrick. When there was more of a market, before teams spent their money, he was a little greedy. He was going for a little too long contract, a little too many,
Talk about,
a few too many years. He overplayed his hand.
Stop the presses. Max
Or else he
Kellerman
wouldn't get
coming
more than
across
12
as
million.
a flaming hypocrite on First Take. You are going to sit up there and talk about somebody overplaying their hand or going for the money?
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Of course you're going to go for. I'm going to go for. We're capitalists and proud of it.
So go
what do you
get
do?
it. So,
What do you do?
So go get it.
You try to get it.
And what happens? And what happens when you overplay your hand? You get less than you would have otherwise got. The proof is in the pudding.
Well, it's not always that you get less than what you would have gotten.
This time
you get less than what you coveted. There's a difference. If you're Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're trying to tell me he's not justified for asking for more?
No, I'm not telling you that.
He is justified for
I'm
asking
telling
for
you
more.
this. According to you, did he get enough money this year or
I don't believe he did.
Therefore, he overplayed his hand.
Well, remember,
Your Honor, I rest my case.
No. Remember, the Jets at one time were talking $8-9 million. The initial reports that came out talked about how they weren't going to budge from that number. So getting the $12 million was actually better than what folks had reported he would have gotten months ago had he agreed to that deal.
But it would have been over multiple years. His guarantee would have been
Not
bigger.
necessarily. Not necessarily. They were talking 1 year at the time
sorry,
as
I
well.
rested my case. I can't say anything else.
I have a quick follow-up before we go to break here. So outside of New England with Miami, Buffalo, Jets, who's most likely to go to the playoffs?
And you talk,
Miami,
in the AFC?
Buffalo, and between Miami, Buffalo, and New York.
The AFC East, who's most likely to go to the playoffs?
Tell me someone who really knows the answer to that question.
I think I do.
The Bills?
I think I do. The Bills.
Yeah?
I think I do the Bills because,
The Bills.
but it's not because of Rex Ryan. Because Rex Ryan has something to show me. I haven't been satisfied. I think Rex Ryan has made more he's had more success making headlines than actually on a football field. And I respect him as a coach, as a defensive mind, but last year was a very, very bad year for Rex Ryan in this respect. He usually was known for being a stout defensive, not a brilliant defensive mind who didn't have an offense. Tyrod Taylor came out of nowhere and put the football world on notice that this dude is no joke. You combine that with LaShawn McCoy. You combine that with Sammy Watkins, who you should have got the damn ball to earlier than you were getting him the ball. And Rex Ryan, if your defense shows up, the Bills could have been better. So as far as I'm concerned, Rex Ryan is on the clock right now.
I totally agree. If you take aim at Belichick and you state that going into the season and everything, there's only so many times you can play that card and always come up short before you turn into a joke.
So even with Fitz, the Jets aren't necessarily a playoff team.